Where do we want to begin?
Hey, Zach. So it feels like this team's transitioning from a period in which it's young stars. It was led by young stars on rookie contracts into a period where those same young stars will be on their second contracts, entering their prime. Does that change the way you build a team around them?
I think we build the team through the same lens, over time of the goal is to win championships, and to build a sustainable contender. I think as you do that, you have to be honest, and intentional, about where the group is, at a given point in time. And yeah, I think when you reflect, on a season like this where, there was a lot of things we're encouraged by, but a pretty, a bitter ending, that I don't think sits well with anyone. I think you want to be upfront with yourself. I think you want to be honest and, intentional, from there of building out a group that is best positioned to compete, in the playoffs and to win, at the highest levels of the NBA. I think there's a lot to take away from that playoff series. Some encouraging things, but a lot, that we just need to be better. And I think that applies to everyone here. I think that starts with me, and my goal is always to be honest with myself and this group of how do we take the next step forward. I think you always have to look back and say, hey, did we really need to triple down on youth at the beginning of the season? There's a lot of guys that we're excited about that I think over time are going to be playoff players and are going to be helpful there. But I think you just have to look at all of that and be intentional about how do we push the group forward. But we all need to just challenge ourselves, in that type of way. But we're motivated as hell. We're gonna do that. We've been, a lot of good, frank conversations, already of, we want to dive back in. We're pissed off to not be, playing basketball today, and we can't wait to be taking the court already as soon as we can.
Terry DeMichael and the Matt.
Can you, with the injuries that ended the season, can you really make a fair assessment of how you built the team for the playoffs? I know you say at the beginning of the season you built the team for the playoffs, but you didn't have all your moving parts at the end. So how is it so you don't overreact because of the ending?
Yeah, I think it's important not to overreact, but I think it's important to react. I don't want to sit here and say, hey, if we had Steven Adams and or Brandon Clark, we would have won the series. I'm not going to do that. I would have loved to have seen what this group would have looked like, with them. And I've, maybe some idea of what that could have been, but that doesn't mean we can't look, we can't learn from, what it looked like, without them. You can, piece it together enough and there's no, no one's going to sit up here and make excuses. We felt like we, should have won, should have had a better outcome in these playoffs. And there's a lot of things you could point to. Yeah, it would have been great to have those guys. Can't wait to have them back, but we got to find ways to be better regardless of who we have, on the floor on a given night. To give just a little update on both of those guys since they come up, Brandon doing really, really well, ahead of schedule, if anything. The Achilles is not, it's not necessarily like an ACL. When you're dealing with an ACL, it's very much like there's a set amount of time, that you want to get to that amount of time, in a recovery. And Achilles, you're not going to rush it. Obviously, we're not going to rush, anything there. But it's a little bit more based on the actual progression, the actual function, there's a lot of objective testing you can do with that. Brandon's doing really well. Brandon is not ruled out, for he's not going to be available, certainly not at the beginning, of next season. I'm not putting out any, formal timeline. There's many steps, this is a torn Achilles, a very significant, rehab, but there's a very real chance that Brandon is back at some point, not early, in next season. So he's not ruled out. Steven, we've been consulting with, experts, just making sure we're putting a pin in the plan before we put anything out. The plan for Steven, though, there's a rehab plan in place. Steven's going to be diving into. the target for Steven is to return at the beginning of next season. That's the hope, for everyone going into this offseason with Steven. So, both Steven and Brandon, I know they were, but bummed would be an understatement to not be out there, with the group in the playoffs. They both can't wait to get back. We can't wait to have them both back.
Michael?
So, Zach, way back at the trade deadline, even the playoffs, now a lot of the conversation has been about veterans and things like that. After the way this season unfolded and with everything, on the court, off the court, do you see acquiring veterans as, a priority in any way this offseason?
Yeah, I mean, I think, there were certainly self-created distractions, that we were navigating in this series, and otherwise. And, as we're looking forward, and thinking about what comes next, those are all things that, that we're gonna keep in mind, from a competitive standpoint. I'm not gonna script out exactly, we're thinking about doing this, and that. I think there's some things that were obviously, that, stand out that, we're of course going to consider areas that we've been aggressive, trying to pursue, deals in the past. We're going to be aggressive, again, certainly there's, it takes two for trades to get done, but we're excited, to get to the point in the off season where we can see what's available. I think we've got a pretty clear idea of the types of things that we'd really like to do. We're excited about, internal growth of the team as well, but we're certainly going to, explore, opportunities, that are out there where we can add guys that are, additive to this team as we're trying to take this team to the next level, to push to win championships. So too early to say exactly what's out there, but looking forward, to say the least, to seeing what's going to be on the table.
Zach, kind of on that point, you said after the trade deadline, even after you got Luke, that you guys were more aggressive than even most people would have assumed to go add other players. And then the reports about what you guys had on the table for Mikal Bridges, for example. Given how the season ended, you have a young core that's seemingly ready to win now. Do you assume that you'll be that aggressive once again this offseason?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't want to speculate on specific players that we, may have made, offers for in the past, but we intend to be, very aggressive, we're never going to do something to do something. We're not going to, just acquire someone just to say that we did, it's just not how, I'm going to operate. But there are, I'd like to think there'll be hopefully some players you just don't know at this point who even might be, available in a trade market. Obviously we have some idea who might be available in free agency. We only have the mid-level, realistically, as a potential tool, in free agency at the upper end. But, with what is, out there, if there's pieces, there's players who we think can be additive to, the push that we're trying to make, we'll be, certainly aggressive in the market.
Zach, with Ja at the end of the season, he said that he wants to be a better decision maker. As you sort of look back on what transpired with him this year, do you wish that the front office could have done anything differently? And what do you make of the steps that he has taken since his suspension to sort of become a better decision maker?
Yeah, I mean, from the point where, everything kind of came to a head, with Ja, there was some, concerning behavior, there certainly. And I think Ja would be the first to say, that it's an ongoing, process, an ongoing, commitment to being the best player that he can be, the best leader that he can be, the best teammate, that he can be. I would give him we've been in lockstep, with Ja from, the morning, that hit of, identifying, this is a really significant issue. There's, real concrete steps you're going to have to take, to prove that, you can, to take the steps forward with the team that you need to, that the NBA, is going to want to see as well. And he's that again, as he said, like it's going to be ongoing, and it's, I'm sure it's not going to be everything goes, absolutely perfectly, but I'm proud of the steps that he's taken. He's really committed to, a healthier lifestyle and a healthier approach, I think in a lot of ways that, we saw, yet again, how effective he can be in the playoffs. But Ja's been locked in. He's going to, I think it's a really important, offseason for him, for him to continue to kind of build on this momentum at this point. But he's taken, the important, feedback, but he's taken it seriously, and I'm looking forward to seeing the level that he can get to, that we all know, he can get to as we dive into next season and beyond.
Zach in the back. Obviously, when the playoff series ended, maturity, even during the playoff series, maturity of this team was called into question because of things that happened off the court and things like that. This team has always had that bravado, which is something that this city and everyone has gotten behind. But as the GM, where does this team have to draw the line between bravado and immaturity, which showed itself a lot during the series? And secondly, with Dylan Brooks right now, what's the status as you move forward with him this summer?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, there were definitely some self-created distractions in this series and along the way. We're going to take a different approach as it pertains to that next season. I think you'll see a different approach from this team, but at the same time, confidence is important. There's nothing wrong with some level of trash talking. We want a group that goes out there and competes and is in that together, and that's part of the NBA at some level. But there's a line, there's a line there certainly, and I don't think that's lost on anyone here. Yeah, story. I'll hit on DB another day, but nothing I could comment on for now. Them going into free agency.
Clayton.
Zach, just as you mentioned, the uncertainty that you have with several bigs, just how important is it going to be to address the front court this summer, get some depth for you guys?
Yeah, with some level of optimism with Steven being on a rehab plan now to target coming back at the beginning of next season. Between Steven, the emergence of Xavier Tillman, really pleased with X. If I can go on a quick tangent about him. That guy has stayed ready every single step of the way. I mean, you guys have seen the stories asking to go to the G League and get more reps there. X is one of the guys who very much, embodies our approach and what we're trying to be about. And I think, at least maybe outside of the organization, was written off, by a lot of people. And sometimes, I think opportunity, really can kind of be confused with ability. And took X a second to, kind of get his footing and really, take off when he had the opportunity. But the versatility that he brings to the table defensively, being able to guard big wings and bigs, his finishing package improved to the extent that he can. I mean, just a testament to the work, that X has put in. And X is definitely, part of that, plan, going into next season. Junior Lofton too. Don't forget about Junior Lofton. He's earned, his way into the 15-man roster, and I'm excited to see what Junior can be. I think there's at the very least, I think he's a guy who you can throw out there and kind of change a game. If you're stuck a little bit, I think he's a guy who can go out there. He could get you a basket. He can shake things up a little bit. Can impose his will, on the game. I think there's a lot of upside, beyond that, of what he could bring to the table. So I think he's certainly part of the mix too. Santi, big offseason, for Santi. He's going to be participating, I believe, with the Spanish, national team. I think that'll be a really good opportunity for growth for Santi, continuing to work on his body, continuing to work on his game. There's a lot of guys who I think are going to be, part of that mix. Brandon, hopefully, coming back at some point during the season. So, I have ideas of things within the roster that, we're going to try to, focus on. But it's too early to tell exactly, we have, we're a ways out from, free agency, the draft, all that. So.
All right, so next we're going to go Parker, Chris, Michael, Mark.
Zach, I know with last offseason's moves, you made half-court offense improvement a priority. In this past season, again, you had the team finish outside the top 20 in half-court offense. Just what were some things that kind of stood out to you, good or bad, and just Is that going to be a systematic X's and O's approach when it comes to bringing talent in this offseason?
Yeah, I mean, when I talk about trying to position ourselves to be in the best place for playoff basketball, that's really kind of what I'm getting at. Our obviously, defense is a big component of that too, but we've tried, dating back to last offseason, you could say maybe it was a long-term focus, but we really were trying to find guys who I think in Roddy and Jake, who I think is going to surprise a lot of people next year, really can help, in that combo forward role, open things up from a spacing standpoint, in that setting. Certainly at the trade deadline, we opened up, kind of an opportunity when we traded Melt, where, we were trying to get, more there too, and injuries with Z. I'm excited to see. It's a big, offseason for Zaire as well. Have a lot of confidence that he'll be able to find his rhythm, but attacking that very intentionally, at midseason with half-court offense, with playoff basketball in mind, acquiring Luke, who is someone we're really excited about, as a long-term, piece of this team. That final stretch of the season, I don't have the number in front of me, but our half-court offense, was good. It was. We're not going to just be satisfied and say we're done building our half-court offense, by any means. But including in the playoffs, I thought it was incredibly encouraging to see what a Ja Des Luke, Tyus Des Luke, just Des and Luke as the ball handlers. I think there's a lot of different ways we could look at that, but encouraged by what we can do with our existing pieces in the half-court setting by adding not just an okay shooter, but an otherworldly shooter, in Luke Kennard. So excited about what he brings to the table. That type of move, clearly shooting, is important in the playoffs. Not lost on us. It's important.
Back on the injury front for a second. Are we to take it from the earlier answer on Adams that whether there's any kind of surgery or procedure needed, it remains uncertain? And then following on to Desmond Bane and Luke Kennard, Bane had the foot injury midseason, Kennard the shoulder. Is there any sense of whether any kind of procedure is needed on either of those beyond rest and rehab this summer?
Yeah, to clarify, excuse me, on Steven first. So the approach with Steven is non-surgical, not a procedure, just a dedicated rehab plan that we're putting in place, with the target being that Steven would return, at or ahead of the beginning of next season. Luke's fine, not a serious shoulder injury, we're talking days, weeks, certainly not months that he'd be back to, being his normal self. So no concerns there. Dez, we'll see coming out of the season where exactly, is he at? How's the toe feeling? What's the best approach going to be there? I wouldn't want to say anything definitively, either way at that point. Honestly, yeah, it's really just coming out of the season and having not had the conversations. I'm not trying to imply, anything necessarily there, but haven't been able to turn to that yet.
Speaking of Desmond Bane, you got an off-season decision to make.
Yeah.
There's just, what are your early, thoughts? Like, is this something that you feel like is a priority to get done?
Dez is a cornerstone, very significant, piece of this group. I think he has an opportunity, going forward to really establish himself as a key driver, a key leader, within this group. I'm excited for the growth that he's shown there, and I think he'll have an even bigger, opportunity to kind of be a heart and soul, of the group, kind of guy going forward. And yeah, I mean, whatever I'm allowed to say, about our interest, our intentions to, to extend Dez, this offseason, I say that. Yeah, I mean, Dez is a huge part of this, and looking forward to working through the offseason with him.
Mark.
I'm just curious, one, why you don't want to talk about Dylan at all, and then two, just to follow up on that, obviously maybe you can't talk about his contract situation, but just you brought up self-created distractions, and obviously he was in the headlines quite a bit. I mean, how would you evaluate his season and his playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much, that really good stuff that Dylan's brought to the table for a long time. He's been, someone who's worked as hard, as anyone on this group. He's set the tone, for what we've been about, defensively. he's a really good person. I think a lot of, the storylines that have come up probably don't just totally get what Dylan's like if you just sit down with him, have dinner with him, see what he's like, as a human being. But that's all I've got on Dylan for today, though.
I would do last one, Mike. Oh, sorry.
Hey, Zach, along the way over the last couple of seasons, you've always said that this was not going to be a linear process. As you reflect on this season and how it ended based on expectations and everything, what are your walkaways? What do you take away in terms of the growth? Where did you see the growth as we go into the offseason, regardless of the result?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a funny thing, honestly. I mean, I think we had a shockingly minimal to no amount of adversity, maybe along the way. And, I don't want to say anyone, got too comfortable per se, but like we really hadn't dealt, with anything in a meaningful way, from an adversity standpoint, for years. And then there was a lot, that this group has had to navigate, some self-created, some not, there are injuries, other things, that are obviously can be a challenge to navigate as well. I'm really proud of the group. Like I want to make sure that comes through here. This is a really tough-minded, heavily motivated, very together group, that is gonna, I think there's some things we, need to change up a little bit, and we're looking forward to working, through that, like I said, but there's a really good group of guys here. There's an excellent coaching staff here. Everyone's in lockstep and on the same page of what we're trying to build. We're going to continue to be aggressive and in taking that forward. And, I think it's good, that things come to a head. You just have to make sure that you make it we have to come out of this and take it seriously and not be satisfied with the first round exit. I'm not. I don't think, anyone here is. I think we have, real belief of what this group could have been this year, but my hope and my expectation is that this is going to be good for us. There's going to be, I think everyone just needs to be honest and blunt with each other, about what do we need to, take away from this, which is exactly what we're going to be. But we're going to be back. We're going to be better. We appreciate, we very much appreciate the support of this city, of this fan base. There's a lot, we felt, decent to good about, this regular season, but we're in our minds, like we're well on our path to, being the sustainable contender, here that we want to be. And we're going to push like hell and get to that point. So that's where we can't wait to dive back in. I wish we were playing basketball today, tomorrow, but we're going to put ourselves in a spot where we're all diving back in and going to do something that the city's proud of when we get there. That's fine, Drew.
What do you make of Taylor's coaching this season? How do you assess the season that he had?
Yeah, I think, over the course of, Taylor's tenure, I think Taylor's done an excellent job. I don't think any of us are satisfied, coming out of this series, with our performance there. Anything excuse, anyone could point to aside, like we're all heavily motivated to roll up our sleeves, figure out, what are the right buttons to push, what are the right things, to focus on going forward. We're going to work through that together, and we can't wait to dive back in. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.